Visible puts the ultimate wireless hack in the palm of your hand. With unlimited 5G wireless data and hotspot designed to keep you connected, powered by Verizon's 5G network. And no contract holding you back. Plans start at $25 a month, or get the premium Visible Plus Pro plan and save $10 on your first month when you use promo code HACK. Make the switch at Visible.com. Terms apply. See Visible.com for details.
Today's story, Corpse Congregation, written by the talented Hannah Graves, is a terrific short horror tale that packs a huge punch. I don't want to give anything away, but I think you're going to love it. I first came across Hannah on social media, and I'm thrilled she submitted a story. I'll include her social media handles and a link to her website in the show notes, so make sure to check out her work and pre-order her upcoming book, Exequiel, which releases on October 23rd. Listen, I'm excited to narrate this story for you, so sit back, turn down the lights, pull up the covers, turn up the volume, and pay close attention as I narrate Corpse Congregation. I'm Will, and you're listening to Midnight Horror Stories.
This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at accenture.com/Spotify.
Corpse Congregation, written by Hannah Graves. They say there is a church, buried deep in some forest miles east of here, where the dead congregate. The church was once a place for the living, you see. Once, it sat at the center of a town, and living people just so happened to inhabit towns. It was never the mecca of anything, never bustling nor a place for tourists. But it was a steady town with enough folk to get by. It might even still be out there today, save for what happened. What happened, you ask? Well, Carla Sue went to church. Now, Carla Sue went to church every Sunday, morning and afternoon, and more often not on Wednesdays too. She was no stranger to the church, and it should have come as no surprise that she was there that Sunday morning, dressed in her finest, ready to give praise to the Lord. The problem was, Carla Sue had died Thursday afternoon. But there she sat, in the pew she always sat, looking and smelling fairly ripe. Her nice clothes were the only ones they'd buried her in, and she kept her gaze locked front and center, eyes directed at the pastor, as she always had. Well, folks didn't rightfully know what to do. They were so shocked that not a one of them screamed, and they waited to see what Carla Sue might say or do. But there was nothing. She just sat there, watching the pastor, waiting for the service to begin. It did, of course, begin. Eventually. The townsfolk weren't sure what other choice they had. No one wanted to touch her or talk to her, and she didn't seem inclined to leave anytime soon. So, service then. Maybe Carla Sue had needed one last sermon before she could be laid to rest. And maybe that was the case, because when the sermon was over, old Carla Sue got up and walked right out of the church. Right back to her grave, some said, because whilst it was found with the dirt disturbed, it had been covered properly once more. That might have been the end of things. Except the next Sunday came, and so too did Carla Sue. And she wasn't alone this time. Craig Powell, who had been dead some 6 months from a heart attack, was also seated in his usual spot when the congregation filed in. Oh, but did his wife faint at the sight of her rotting husband, resting there as though this were any other Sunday. This time, one man worked up the courage to ask Carla Sue what she was doing and what she wanted. But she didn't so much as look at him, let alone answer. Craig Powell was just as empty when the same man questioned him a few minutes later. They just sat and stared, not taking part in the hymns or the prayers, watching an increasingly uncomfortable pastor as he pretended to go over his notes for the day. And so again, service proceeded with the dead in attendance, with a befuddled and lost congregation. It wasn't like they were going to be driven from their own place of worship, and the idea of not having church at all, that was even more of an abomination than the dead sitting in church with them. Every week from there on out, a new member of the deceased would join their worship. They came from all walks of decomposition, down to even little Apple Steiner, who'd been dead so long she was nothing but bones. They each waited with the patience of a saint for the service to begin. At some point, a few people worked up the nerve to try physically removing the dead, but even tiny Apple Steiner, who was but bones, could not be swayed. Not even with 3 full-grown men pulling on her desperately, as though she were a rope in a game of tug-of-war. There were entire town hall meetings over these dead, not just their presence, but that they were starting to overfill the church, to take the places of living, breathing members of the congregation. Folks were being made to stand off to the side to watch the sermon, glancing uncomfortably at the corpse that had taken their seat. Not that anyone had answers. The pastor blessed the church again and again. He even blessed the dead, bidding them to return to their eternal rest. Nothing seemed to affect the expired congregants. They showed up faithfully every week, stronger by one each time. This continued until it followed its course to the natural conclusion, wherein the dead completely outnumbered the living. Not on Wednesday service, or even the late Sunday one, but every Sunday morning without fail, the dead were there, taking up every seat in the building. As always, they sat silently and left silently, and could never be found outside the church itself. Even when people watched directly as a member of the dead exited the building, they just sort of disappeared into the wind. When graves were opened, the undead were found to be in their resting places, so somehow they were getting back and forth, but, well, it really didn't matter. The point of the story is that the dead overtook that church, and what good is a town without a church? Folks were so unsettled and they feared things would progress that the dead soon wouldn't be satisfied with just Sunday mornings. So a lot of folks, well, they split, moved on to other less gruesome prospects. Rumor says the only one who wound up staying behind was that old pastor. Not that he wasn't disturbed by having a corpse congregation, but didn't he have an obligation to God that outweighed it all? To preach to the people who needed it, to the people who wanted to hear the word. They say he's one of them now, lasting some 10 years before keeling over right there at the podium, just to get back up and continue as though nothing had happened. They say the undead congregation still meets every Sunday morning. And if you're brave enough, or dumb enough, and you dig far enough into the forest east of the old highway, you can find that church. And if you find it on a Sunday morning, well, at least you can stand to the sides, watching the sermon as it goes on, watching the preacher, long since past himself, gesticulating wildly but never actually saying a word. A sermon you can't hear, that you can't understand. but it ain't meant for you. Anyway, maybe the dead will welcome you.
¿Escuchan eso? Es el delicioso encuentro entre un Extra Crispy McCrispy Strip y la cremosa salsa César. Si así suena, solo imagínate cómo sabe. Salsa César, en McDonald's por tiempo limitado. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
What did you think of Corpse Congregation? Comment on Spotify, and let's talk about it. A huge thank you to Hannah Graves for submitting this terrific short story. Be sure to follow her on Threads at uwu.soshiopasu and on her website, where you can find more of her work at www.hannah-graves.com. And of course, be sure to follow Midnight Horror Stories wherever you stream pods, and make sure to leave a 5-star review. I'm Will, and thanks for listening to Midnight Horror Stories. See you next episode.